hours
is Eastern.
Is Texas time.
No,
Central.
Eastern
Texas
time, baby.
Texas time is the only time that matters in the U.S.
I think there's a song about that too.
Yep.
It's probably concrete.
It's probably incorrect.
The sooner y'all get used to it, the sooner it will be all right.
It sounds like you're a Sooner fan.
I finally
the whole entire conversation.
I finally made.
Well, Dallas keeps on not playing good. I guess you could have to be a Sooner fan, huh?
I finally made.
Right.
I finally made Ben say tacos today in a comment instead of burritos. So there's still hope. There's still hope.
He might have been eating a taco.
Those California guys, but he'll be on here soon on the show, but we're gonna probably have a whole food discussion of what's the proper word to use for those joyful raps of goodness. Anyhow, y'all ready to go?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Live for a minute. For a minute.
Get me distracted with food.
It's taco time, baby. Let's get it. Creative Makers Podcast, episode 84. And how's everybody doing on this lovely Sunday evening?
Making it happen.
Sunday.
Hello.
Wonderful.
I'm Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks, and we have our host here, BJ, with Byron's Custom Woodworks.
Custom Woodworks. Did you want me to interrupt myself? I'm sorry.
Well, no.
Matt with Wacky Works.
Matt with Wacky and Mustachio with the wooden mustache.
I'm messing mine up.
What? It's just gonna. What do we do?
We are semi-professionals, right?
The great thing about Joey is he's pretty, and that lasts forever.
Right. Thank you very much. Hey, I'm the face of the podcast, I guess, right? These
That's
lovely
right.
chops out here.
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Face the big bucks, right?
Anyhow, BJ, let's get on with this deal here.
All right, let's get on to this beautiful new segment. What's glue with you? And let's start off with the man, the myth, the legend, the face of the podcast, Mr. Joey. What do you got going on this week, brother?
I should have never said that. Now it's gonna.
It's a thing now.
You're another Matt. You don't know how to let things go.
You open the door, I'm going to walk through it.
I know
exactly. Walking in the house.
I haven't had a whole lot of shop time, but I did today, and I was going to start working again on that project that I got going, and then I started looking at things, so I started cleaning, and I actually got my CNC uncovered. It's pretty amazing.
That wasn't a new CNC? I just thought you just unboxed a new CNC.
Picks or it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I have a story. It shows my new CNC according to Wackerle. I took it out of the box today. So, but yeah, man, I it's gotten to a point where y'all go through it and you have so much clutter. maybe not. Maybe I'm the only one. And you just moving stuff around, and then it gets to a point where it just gets like, to me, it'll get to me, and I'm like, man, I can't move this stuff, and then I just like, I'm just not going to do it. So I just got on with it today and started, storing stuff away and getting stuff out of the way, and it was good. If I hadn't have been in here this afternoon, like I told Matt, I'd still be putting stuff away out there and just making room so that I can lay stuff out and get on with that project. But that's about all I got going on. What about you, Wackerle? Oh, I didn't mean to take over.
No.
I was going to pick Matt anyway, so yeah, go ahead.
I kind of started doing the same thing, and then I did a project about 12 years ago when we first moved into this house, 12, 13 years ago. I converted underneath my stairs into a pantry for the wife, and I didn't have really an idea of what I wanted and how I wanted it, so I kind of slapped it together, and it worked great. It really did. And now it's like, start getting something finished up. So she tore that whole everything out of the pantry, and I was like, well, this is kind of my opportunity to replace some of the mess ups I did to begin with. So now I put new mess ups in there. So But I was going to be in my shop this weekend, and that was my plan, is to take a day and a half to clean out my shop, get everything organized, and get that done. But there's next weekend, I guess. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Mustachio, what have you been doing?
Let's see. I didn't have a lot of shop time this week either. Work's been really busy. But I did get back to dismantling my lumber rack. I had to change a water filter for my hot water heater, and to access that, I needed to clean everything out of that corner. So,
Your what?
water heater?
There you go. Thank you.
Hot water heater? What?
There's no such thing.
We
There
actually
is such thing as a hot water heater. It's a two-stage heating system. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Good night.
Let's not oversee what actually happened. We actually got to see a 2-year procrastination get done Friday evening.
Year and a month. It was a year and a month, Joey.
You said 2 years.
So on to year 2 years. On to 2 years.
We're going 2 years.
12/23 was when I was supposed to do it.
It doesn't matter. 2 years. 2 years get done Friday night live while we watched him change that water filter out.
It happened.
I really hate to see your filters in your house. Do you change those out every 30 days?
What filters?
Air filters.
Oh, no, I have an HVAC. I don't want to go into that. We won't talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, you have an HVAC. Yeah. Okay.
No, the attic dropped down. Those stairs broke last year, so I still got to fix those to get up there to fix. Yeah, don't come over here unless you want to be put to work.
What you got going on, BJ?
Well, finally got all the parts in to work on the dust collection. So taking the beautiful, wonderful Harbor Freight 2 horsepower, and we're gonna pump it up a little bit. I got the Wind. Was it the Wind? Yeah, the Wind.
Yes, sir.
Impeller. That's what takes it from under 10 inches to 12 inches.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I looking at it because they changed the orientation of the scoops. It's supposed to help pull everything in. Did that, upgrading the CNC to all 4-inch. So it's, currently it's 2.5, goes into a 4-inch Y. Just some initial testing. I think I'm getting at the CNC like just a little over 100 CFM. And so hopefully with all this stuff, we're going to see a much, much greater improvement, because with some of the larger bits that I'm running, it sucks, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm cutting, small grooves and stuff here and there, it's not bad, but it's when you push those bits to their limit, it's then pushing the dust collection to its limit. And I know, like, my furthest run out, at my table saw, I was getting just right at 300 CFM, and that's probably 30 feet away. So I don't look for a huge amount of improvement out there, but anything will help.
I always thought and always wondered this, and I wonder if it's that people think about dust collection negatively like they do sometimes, because they have improperly installed it, or they don't completely understand exactly what you're supposed to do. And I think that once you see it and you've gone through it, and it's really, you have to go through it. And once you go through it, I think it's a game changer, in my opinion.
And there's, and I think with this one, just the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to order that silicone tape versus the aluminum tape that I've got on everything, just because I've heard that makes a huge difference.
Sealing up all your pipe.
Really go through, and stuff that I don't ever need to move or don't plan on. I'll take and put a bead of silicone around it, call it a day. Just because I've seen the results on just taping a few joints and how much difference it makes. So this will be not a complete overhaul on the dust collection. We're we're throwing a turbo on it at the end of the day. You know.
I
Yeah,
mean,
a little
we
bit.
saw good results by doing what we did.
Yeah, and
even though-
I'm following what y'all did.
even though Matt wanted me to go further than what he did, but Matt's really gone off the deep end with that dust collector and made some improvements on it, but I wasn't willing to go that far. And he's come up with some good ideas, and I have some of them. And if I do decide to install that thing back on there, then I'm going to put those in, and then, but you're going to see some vast improvements with it. And it's going to save, in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of money. You don't need to have one of those fancy big old collectors. They're nice, but it can be done. Matt was doing it, and his whole shop, but it's gonna be good. I think you're gonna be happy with it.
And I think the only thing else that I want to do is the filter upgrade that Matt did.
Mm-hmm.
And do that setup just so I'm not dealing, because I've still got the second stage, from the Harbor Freight side,
which is reducing your airflow. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there's been times like I kind of feel like putting in a Y with a blast gate, so during nicer weather I can just dump that sucker outside, and then it'll just scream.
I think April Wilkerson did that. Yeah, she did that.
Yeah, and I mean, because really in Texas we have several months that I can do that, because you just don't want to suck all your cold air out or all your hot air out.
Right.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I got going on.
Nice.
I know last week I talked about a table build. Still have not heard anything back from the client. Sent them the quote, and they left me on unread at this point. So,
bummer.
They're coming around.
What's going to happen? And we all know this. They're going to hit me back and go, "Oh, I need this done in a week." And it's like, "Oh, that's change.
You have it done tomorrow."
Yeah. Let's go ahead and add. Let's just go ahead and multiply that by 2, and then we'll talk. So
Yep.
But that's it. So let's Matt, you got something you want to go over?
I do have something. I would like to thank our patrons. We have Mama T, and we have Keith Drennan of Blackthorn Concepts. If you would like to support the show and join us, we'll be having some giveaways coming up exclusively for patrons only. And you can go to our YouTube page. Any of the videos will have our Patreon link on it, as well as our Instagram page. So thank you for those patrons. And yes.
There you go. All right. Well, we're going to bring the man of the hour up, and we're going to bring him in here. Let's add him to the stage. It's the man, Mr. I will never try to pronounce his last name. We'll let him do that. Steve, thanks a lot for taking the time out and being with us. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So
for those who are interested, the last name, the way I pronounce it, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but this is what I say. It's Idarola.
Idarola.
Yeah.
Idarola.
Joey, come on now. Idarola some burritos up. Come on. You got that one.
Or some other things. Some other things.
Yeah. That's a good one, man.
Matt's been thinking of that for weeks.
Yeah, he has.
I just heard his last name.
Wow. So for all the listeners out there, Steve, why don't you just give us a little background about yourself, and then we'll get into talking about just whatever.
Yeah, sure. I classify myself as a hobbyist woodworker, creative. I'm a photographer on the side. I got a full-time job working in information technology. So I have some limited shop time, but I try and get in there as much as I can, and occasionally build something. And, when I don't build something, I take large pieces of wood and I make them smaller.
There we go.
Now the trick is when we figure out how to make it bigger.
Yes, glue.
Board stretchers.
Board stretchers.
Scarf joints and glue.
Well, Steve's kind of downplaying what he's talking about. If you've never gone and seen some of his photography, it's pretty amazing. And I'm kind of jealous of his woodworking stuff. He's got an awesome collection of hand planes, and it's a massive collection of hand planes. And it's we're just gonna ask him a few questions about that stuff, because he's a wealth of knowledge. If you're out there and you need some information on hand planes, I mean, this guy, he knows quite a bit. Lean on him a lot, here and there to figure out some stuff and give us some pointers. But yeah, Steve, why don't you talk about your hand plane collection? Because it's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to get a very large collection of Lee Nielsen and some other planes, hand planes. I've got a bunch of older Stanley Baileys. I've got some Veritas in there, but I've been very, very fortunate over the years to amass quite the collection of some new and some vintage hand planes and saws and that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's, for me, I enjoy a hybrid woodworking setup, but I always kind of tend to fall back on the hand tools, just because in my mind it's kind of a little bit of a relaxation. And there have been times where I've just been stressed out, and I just go down in the shop and I just put a board in the vise, and I literally make a large board into a small board, and I just create shavings. So it's kind of almost a little bit of a Zen activity with the hand tools in my mind. And sure, I've got plenty of power tools and joiners and planers and table saws and a slew of Festool stuff. But for me, I always kind of gravitate right back to the hand planes and those hand tools. And I think for me, it's a little bit of when I was growing up working in my grandfather's shop. And I remember as a kid just, spending hours in the shop just using hand drills and saws and chisels and everything. And for me, that's just kind of where it is.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So you make the shavings in the shop, so it makes it look like you did a bunch. And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I can relate. Some of the times I'll sit outside underneath the tree, acting like I'm doing something, throw some dirt on myself, come inside, act like I've been working all day. I get it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Throw some water in your face too, make it look like you worked up a sweat.
Exactly.
Yeah, and occasionally I photograph all those shavings and I call it art.
Oh no! Now you're just showing off.
So I don't know if you know this offhand or if you want to tell everybody out there, but how many planes do you have? How many? I mean, you got a massive collection.
I think the proper answer to that is more than anyone should have. No, I mean, I got a lot. It's
I got a lot.
I got a lot.
All of them?
No, I actually don't have all of them. There are a handful of them that I do not have, but I am looking. So
Barbecue planes.
Yeah, no, I've. I mean, over the last 30 years, I've probably amassed almost probably 90% of what Lee Nielsen has produced. So that's a fair amount. I've got number 1 all the way through number 8. I've got shooting board planes. I've got the 51. I've got the 9. I've got just about all of the chisels that they've produced. Yeah, and as my brother who's in the chat, he says, "He who dies with the most tools wins," and he and I are in a little bit of a competition. It's a healthy competition,
really?
But
Really? So wait a minute now. Bring that comment back up. Bring that comment back up. We're gonna who's winning at this point?
I'm gonna go with me,
Hey, you're on the show. That's what I'd go with too.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to dispute it.
Yeah, absolutely. He can type all he wants in the comments, but it's me.
I feel it. I feel it. It's coming.
I'm sure he's got a few choice words under his breath right now.
Hey.
Ferociously typing in the chat.
He says dead heat. He thinks it's a tie.
Oh my goodness.
So here's the real question about the tools.
Yes.
Have you truly disclosed the actual purchase price of those tools to a significant other?
No,
Or
thankfully.
Are we all going to get a really good deal one day?
You're going to get a really good deal one day.
I'm the closest, Steve.
Yes, Matt, you are.
What's that old joke? You know, I fear, as a weird woodworker, I fear two things: my wife finding out what I really paid for the tools, or her selling them for what I told her I paid for them when I die.
Yep.
They gave them to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them have been a majority of them have been bought at, regular market cost from Lee Nielsen or whoever, but there have been a fair number of eBay purchases and Craigslist and there have
Garage
definitely been
sales.
some inflated prices there because they're the very hard to find, number one or something.
So thinking about planes, I mean, if you had to get into if we're all just getting into the hand plane game going on, what hand planes are we looking to get into? Which one are we starting out with?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think first and foremost that you got to start with a little bit of a budget, and most people are not going to start out with Lee Nielsen or even Veritas. A lot of folks are probably going to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or some other big box store, Menards, and they're going to probably buy a Stanley or, something else. And they're going to get it home and they're going to realize they're going to go try and use it. And it's going to be pretty terrible experience because it's not tuned up and it only cost them like $40, and they're going to get frustrated and throw it aside for like 10 years or just throw it out. So I think for a majority of people who are hobbyist woodworkers who want to start getting into hand planes, there's a block plane and there's like a number 4 or a number 5 sized plane. And right now, I think some of the best value and quality out there is actually, and I have zero affiliation with them, but I've seen their products. I've handled them. I think they're a great value, is actually Melbourne Tool Works. And they're a very good entry-level price. And what they've done is they've taken, and the typical hand plane is like that Stanley Bailey, if everybody is familiar with that. It's kind of a high-angle frog, and it takes some getting used to and tuning. What they've done is they've eliminated that, and they've actually gone with a low-angle hand plane, more like your Lee Nielsen or your Stanley 62, which is just a lower angle on that blade to help with clearing that material out. It helps a lot with more figured woods. So for the price, you can, and what Melbourne Tools is actually doing right now is they're selling them in like 3-packs where you get like a hand plane, a low angle block plane, a low angle like 4 or 5, and also a larger joining plane. And they're all low angle and they're a relatively good price. Now, the other option is you can go out and you can find yourself some quality Stanley or Bailey hand planes from Facebook, Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist. Usually that's what everybody here's about when they say my grandfather handed me down these planes and I've inherited them or whatnot. And those are also great planes. They're a normal standard angle plane, and they take a little bit of work just to tune up, but they are wonderful. And you can find them at a relatively good price, and just a little bit elbow grease, clean up some rust, maybe flatten the sole on them, and sharpen those blades, and they're good to go.
So what in your opinion, what is the best way if you got to flatten the sole? What are the steps that you should go through to get that sole flattened?
Yeah, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a straight edge and I'm going to see how far out it is. And then I'm going to probably use a piece of float glass or a piece of granite, or a lot of people sometimes use like their in-feed or out-feed, tables for either a joiner or even their table saw. You put down some sandpaper and you very lightly go back and forth as if you were planing in the motion of using the hand plane. And what that's going to do is that's going to gradually flatten that sole. You want to try and keep real even pressure and, work through the grits, and that will end up getting that as flat as you can. And that's the easiest way, I think, to take and flatten the sole if it's out a little bit. And a lot of the older planes, the Stanleys, the Baileys that are 80, 100, even older, are going to be probably out because they've been used. They'll start to dish a little bit, and sometimes they'll actually twist. So that's what I would suggest, is just using that known good flat surface with some sandpaper and work your way through some grits. It's pretty easy to, take the sole and just take like a pencil or a marker and just kind of put some lines on it so you can see where that is wearing down and flattening. And once it's all flat, you're good to go to the next grit.
So an angle grinder and a flapper bit, that probably is not a good idea.
Probably not the way I would suggest to do it.
So once
if you really want to do it, take it to a machine shop. If you have a friend who's got a good machine shop, and they can flatten that sole, that'd be the ideal way. But not a lot of places have that.
And the price would take away your soul. I got
exactly.
Yep.
So you got your sole flat, and then are you looking to get a blade? How are you looking to sharpen your blades? Well, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I've used a number of different methods over the years. I have a Tormek. I don't use it as much as Waterstones for my hand planes. Majority of my hand planes, I use Shapton stones with a jig usually. Sometimes I do freehand sharpen, but for the most part, I work my way through a couple different stones, and I always start by flattening out the back of the blade and get that really flat, and then I'll flip it over and I'll work with the angle that's already on the plane blade, and I'll sharpen that up, and then eventually, strop it. So if we're talking about a known good blade, that's how I usually do it. And it doesn't take that long. And if I'm going to rehab something like a Stanley hand plane that's, 80 years old or something like that, honestly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to get that Stanley blade flat, because those blades have been known to be a little bit thinner than what a lot of the modern blades are. So what I'll do is I'll look to get a replacement blade for that, a good quality replacement blade, which for the longest time was Hawk blades, which I believe was purchased by Lee Valley Veritas. And I think they now own the Hawk line. And they sell some really great reproduction blades and chip breakers specifically for the Stanley Bailey planes. So that's usually where I will go with rehabbing a plane.
Got a question in the chat. What are your thoughts on razor blade planes?
Razor blade planes. I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to. Are you referring to like a spoke shave?
No, so there's a new line of planes that have hit the market in the last year or two where it uses an actual single edge. I believe it uses an actual single edge razor blade, or it uses their proprietary blades. And so you just, once the blade's dull,
Yes,
you take it out,
okay.
throw it away, grab a new one.
Okay, yes, now I know what you're referring to. I have recently seen those. I don't have any experience with them. As far as a disposable blade in that style, I'm not 100% sure it's going to be as good quality as a standard thick blade in a plane, because most of the blades that are used are a lot thicker, and that way there's no deflection
Mhm.
when you're planing that surface. When you start thinning that blade out in this style of razor blade plane, I'm sure they've done their due diligence, and I'm sure it works fine. I don't have any experience with it, so I can't say one way or the other whether I would trust it. I'm sure it works fine, but if all I'm doing is I'm replacing the blade every time it gets dull, I think that's an added expense, because it only takes about 30 to 60 seconds to just touch up and resharpen that existing plane blade. So I think it's definitely something I'll look into, but for me, I've got a lot of time and money invested in the older style.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you at least got to have one.
Yeah,
So,
I think I just saw someone else do a review on one of those, and I can't remember what the brand was. And matter of fact, I think it was Rob Cosman just did a review on one.
and I just did a quick Google. Hawk Tools has one on their sharpening blog.
Okay.
And it's called the Little Giant, and it looks like it's ancient, and it says uses old razor blades. So they had one back in the day that, once your blade is too dull to shave your face, now you got a little block plane, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a
Interesting.
couple in the chat saying that those have been around since the 50s. It's
Yeah.
not anything that I've ever seen.
No.
I used to have a pencil sharpener and do the same thing. Got a razor blade and it'd flip over.
Yeah.
All right.
So I got a question on like the Stanley planes. I've seen some, and I'm learning because I'm getting into that. But on some of the Stanley planes on the sole, you'll see like how do I explain it? They're like divots, but not divots. It's not a full solid sole. It has
Corrugation.
there you go. Exactly. What
Yep.
was that, just a design, or is there a certain purpose for that style of plane? And how would you flatten, or do you flatten how would you get that true?
Yeah, so those fluted or corrugated planes, those soles, you would flatten them the same as any other plane that you're going to flatten with sandpaper or some other way you're going to flatten them. So my understanding of it, I'm not an expert on those. As a matter of fact, I'm not an expert on any of these. I'm just a hobbyist. But from my knowledge, these are, they were kind of designed to help alleviate some of the resistance as you're planing. So a lot of times what you'll see is with planes, you'll use either a wax or a paraffin wax on the bottom to help lubricate and just kind of slide along a little bit and give it less resistance. So yeah, I've got a couple of those corrugated. I call them corrugated, but they look like corduroy. Like
I was given one a couple years ago, and the guy that gave it to me, because he saw me flattening something with my big Stanley number 7, he's like, "Here, this is because of the flutes, the corrugation. It's better for flattening because as you get down to that flat, there's less chance of it, not sticking, but I guess less friction's generated by it." So
Yeah, exactly. As you smooth that long board down, you're going to increase that resistance because it's getting flatter and flatter, and it'll definitely be a little bit more of a workout.
Cool.
Nice.
So, give us a little. We'll probably touch back and forth on this subject here because you know a lot. But what else do you have in your shop, Steve? Can you give us a little rundown of all the other goodies that you have that makes you surpass your brother in tools?
Sure. So the latest hotness is the new Onefinity Elite Foreman, which I've had for just about 2 weeks now. Much like a lot of the folks, I think they took advantage of the Black Friday sale and got the the Onefinity with the spindle and the tool changer. So I am still currently waiting for my spindle and my tool changer. I think they both will ship in the next couple weeks. So I've spent like the last 2 weeks trying to convert it over so I can use a trim router in it. So I went with the Makita, and I've just about got it ready to make my first cuts. As a matter of fact, last night I was trying to do my waste board program so I can flatten it. And it was like midnight, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put this off until tomorrow. And so that's the new hotness is the CNC. And what my hope is that I'm going to use that to start making electric guitar bodies, and eventually in the fall, hopefully I'll get the 4th axis and the rotary, and I'll start to make necks as well. I'm sure I can do it without that, but that's kind of what my hope is among other projects that I want to try and do with the CNC. So that's the CNC. I also am into 3D printing. So that started probably 2 years ago, and I've made a couple of products, one of which I partnered with a buddy of mine through his 3D printing store, and we're selling I don't have any here in my office, but we're selling dust extraction adapters for the new Festool CSC 650, which is their sustainer table saw. And so when I purchased that at launch, I got it home, and the only extractor I had was a CT48, and I had an older style hose. And the way that they've designed that port for dust collection, it was designed for the 27 millimeter smaller hoses to fit inside and lock in. Well, I had the 36 millimeter, and it was smooth on the inside. The way it's designed, you cannot put anything over the dust port on that CT 650. So I was using an adapter to put it inside the dust extraction port and then hook up my hose. So I sat there, I looked at it for a couple days, and I went and I designed up something, and so we have that for sale. And yeah, we've sold a handful of them. It just started selling at the end of the year last year. So yeah, there's that. What else?
There's a question down in the chat there.
Yeah.
So yeah, what software are you running for CAD CAM? I mean, while we're on the 3D printing CNC.
Yeah, so for the 3D printing, I'm currently using Shaper 3D, and for my CNC, with the purchase from Onefinity, I got a year's subscription to Carveco Maker. So I'm trying to learn that, and I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with that or whether I'm going to make the jump over to Vectric or Aspire. So that's where I am with that. And as far as the 3D printing, I don't know if I'm going to stick with Shaper 3D. I may just go full fusion and just say the heck with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm slowly doing. I used to use what's it called, Tinkercad, and then
Yeah.
I'm learning Fusion 360 now, and it's yes, there is a learning curve, but oh my gosh, the capabilities are amazing. Just in a few
that's
little
what
things
I've
I've already
heard.
designed.
I'm still old, stuck on SketchUp. So
SketchUp is great for furniture design, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As soon as you start to try and do anything beyond furniture design, I think it needs some updates. Just it's my personal opinion.
I'd
I
agree
tried
with
to
that.
do a little bit of 3D design with it, and it was more of a headache, and I just jumped over to Shaper 3D. So,
Well, and the
and
cost. I mean, you look at Fusion, it's technically free as long as you're not making a certain amount.
Yeah.
So
yes, yeah. And
I've never
with
used
everything being
Shaper,
a
so-
subscription now,
oh yeah,
it's probably in the middle, I would say,
okay.
between SketchUp and Fusion. It's definitely not as powerful as Fusion. They just at the end of last year came out with parametric modeling, and I said I'm going to try it out because I didn't want to spend a whole ton of money for Fusion, and I didn't know if I was going to like the 3D printing, so I just
Yeah,
eased my way into it.
nothing wrong with that.
Speaking of 3D printing, was that your first 3D printer that you've ever had, or did you have something else before the bamboo?
Yeah, no, that was my first. I ended up getting the bamboo, the carbon. So yeah, I love that thing. It's great. It just works.
Yeah,
Yep.
it does. It's
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say I kind of have this theory about a lot of things is buy once, cry once, and
Mhm.
I don't my full-time job I deal with problems and fixing stuff in IT, and at the end of the day when I come home I just want my stuff to work, and
Yes.
Festool, in my opinion, yes, it's expensive, but the whole system, you're buying into a system, it works, and it works pretty darn well. Yes, there are other things that are out there that are probably better, less expensive, but it just works. I don't have to think about it. Things like the Bamboo Labs, carbon X1 carbon, it just works. I tried when I first got it, trying some third-party filament, and I had more problems with it. And I just said, you know what? The heck with it. And I went back to bamboo filament. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but it just works. I have had almost no problems with that printer since I switched back to just using the bamboo filament.
So I'll make a recommendation for you on that. Check out Voxel PLA.
Okay.
I did the same thing. I used to use the bamboo. Since I switched this, it's a little bit cheaper. And then if you order like 3 or 4 rolls, the shipping's free. But I have had hundreds and hundreds of hours of printing with 0 issues.
That's good to know.
Definitely something to look at the end.
Yeah.
They don't have all the color options. They're slowly building their catalog, but it's been great. And I don't like dealing with the refill rolls because I've seen too many just absolute horror stories of people dropping refills on the ground, and then what do? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not good spaghetti.
No.
You know? And so it's like, yeah, I mean, okay, I'm contributing a little more waste in plastic, but I try to recycle all of my plastic spools that I can in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely check them out.
Absolutely.
But
I definitely will.
nothing against bamboo filament. They make a great filament, but if you're printing a lot, $1 or $2 per roll definitely adds up.
Yes. Yeah. I am not a production shop. I don't want to be a production shop with my 3D printing. It's just kind of a hobby, and I can totally see that. It will add up if you're doing production.
Mhm.
But it's a great addition. I mean, you can make
Oh yeah.
all sorts of little gadgets for for your tools, whatever you need to do. I mean, that's just so cool to be able to jump in there, and bamboo is taken away from all the other things that when 3D printing, like what we were doing, having to manually level, and you have to know when you have problems. Bamboo, like you say, just works, and it lets you concentrate more on the design aspect and making some cool things that you can incorporate into the shop. So, I mean, it's pretty awesome. Matt just got him a couple of them, and you're loving them, ain't you? Just hit the button and just go.
I went from the JG Maker to Prusa to now the Bamboo, and the Bamboo just does it. You hit the button and it tells you, hey, dummy, you made an error here. We'll correct this for you. Hit this button.
Yep.
Hit the button, it corrects it, and it prints.
Yeah. Mustachio did the same thing. He's gotten into it pretty deep now, haven't you?
Yeah,
I got a whole farm going, Matt.
I just have I have a P1S and I got an A1. But I bought the P1S because I had the AMS light on the A1, and I bought the P1S without the AMS because I was like, I don't need two AMSs. And after like 2 prints, I was like, I'm a bonehead. I should have gotten the AMS. I bought it shortly after because I mean it's handy. Even if you're just printing one color and it's a long print or something, just like, hey, this spool has like 3/4 left, like it's gonna run out, but I got this backup right next to it that switch over. Like that alone is awesome.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many things just in the last week and a half I've printed. Just, I mean, the adapter for the CNC so I can put the trim router in. Things to mount stuff to the tables. All dust boot. Adapters for the hose. Just it's so handy.
That's one of the key things is making your adapters, like hose adapters, or I mean, that thing is just worth its weight in gold for that. You don't have to go out and purchase that stuff. Now you just take a few measurements, go into CAD, and design it, and boom, it's there in-house. And those printers are so quick that you can literally have it within a couple of hours, if even that. That's the best deal of it all. I know on some of my prints that I do sell, it was taking me literally, I can print triple the amount on the Bamboo in a shorter amount of time, like beat it by almost 3.5 hours of what it used to take me for one. So that's significant. It's so crazy how fast they are. And I'm just letting it run at regular normal speed. I'm not doing that, all the different other speeds you could put them on,
Ludicrous mode.
Yeah. So pretty nice.
I've done it one time.
It's scary. It's scary putting it on that fast setting.
I think my favorite thing about the whole 3D printing world portion of it is being able to share the files back and forth with each other to be able to print stuff out. Yep. You need an 80 millimeter spindle with a 4-inch hose onto it. I sent it over to BJ. It was super simple. He sent me back, hey, I designed this, but he sent it back to me. Hey, man, I made this smoother for you and did this. It's just a way to work together with it and make things amazing. I think it ups your level of not only creativity, but production of getting things for your stuff or the ability to just print things out.
Absolutely. And especially with like Maker World and Thingiverse and all the other sites that, I mean, just about, it's almost to the point where just about any of the common things that people can think of has already been designed by someone. And a lot of times you can just go there, download it, and just print it. You don't even have to design it.
Yeah. I mean, my wife's got another kitchen, we got a KitchenAid thing here with mixers and paddles and stuff, and they're all in the drawers. And she's like, wish these things would hang on the thing. I went on to Maker World there, looked at it, KitchenAid, boop, there's one right there, printed it off, hung them up underneath the counters, out of the way. Works perfect.
So I was talking to my dad, my 60, he listens to this podcast, so I have to be careful what I say. 63-year-old dad, I'll be nice. He's buying a 3D printer, and I asked him, I was like, why? And I've sent him battery holders and stuff that I've made for all his DeWalt batteries. He's like, well, I bought a bunch more batteries and I bought a bunch of this, and I just, I'm building out my shop and I want to, it's an excuse to buy one so I can just print all the stuff I want. And I'm like, hey man, like,
Yep.
saves me from making them and shipping them to you. Like, have fun. It's like,
Absolutely.
go buy this.
Yeah, and the cost to entry has really come down over the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? The A1 is the bamboo, the small one. I mean, it's not
the
for some
mini.
people it might be out of their reach, but I think for the vast majority of folks, it's very easy to get into one of those and start 3D printing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
look at
go ahead.
As I say, you look at the quality. My first 3D printer was an Ender 3 V2.
Yep.
That I got on sale for like $250. Spent almost double that getting it actually where it would function and print reliably.
Mm-hmm.
You can go buy an A1 Mini for $300,
Right.
and it prints out of the box. You're ready to print in less than 30 minutes. I think my first printer took me a week to get ready to print. It's just, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And like what, to what Matt said is that pretty much a lot of people have gotten these printers. So it's not like where I had a certain brand, you had a certain brand, and you had to kind of tweak everything to make it work. You could get a file, but not everything would work with the certain settings. So you had to go in there and tweak it. Now it's just send the file, and boom, put it in the slicer, let it slice it, and off away you are, take off. No big deal. So that's really key. It's pretty cool.
So using hand planes were just that easy.
so Steve,
it is. It's not that hard.
So Steve, tell us about the rest of your shop. You got, you went from your printer. What else you got in there?
Yeah. So I already mentioned that I got a ton of Festool. So I've got a couple track saws. Probably my favorite tool from Festool, believe it or not, is the Contoro, which is their edge bander. When I started getting back into this and I was kind of building out my shop, and I'm still really building out my shop, I had picked one up used on Festool Recon, and it is just a dream to work with. That is like the epitome of buy once, cry once. It has one function. It's to edge band, and it just works. It is such a pleasure to use, and I've never had any bad results with it. It's just awesome. So, I've got my Festool sanders. I've got an RO 150. I've got EC 150. I've got a couple of routers. I've got a 1400. I've got the 1010. Just a whole bunch of various other storage containers for organization for Festool. What else? I've got a saw stop. I've got what is it? I think it's the 56-inch
52
PCS.
52. Yeah.
52.
That's what I've got.
Yeah.
You
So-
regret buying one that big?
Go ahead and correct him in front of all of his friends, guys. Come on now.
yeah.
You do it to us.
Yeah.
But that's you guys, not him.
So,
Come on.
so
he's
that-
a guest.
Oh yeah. Be nice to the guest. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I forgot.
So let me ask you a quick thing on that saw stop, Steve.
Yes.
Okay. One complaint that I got are the legs. They're junk, right? The saw's magnificent. The legs are junk. But if you were to buy it all over again, would you go with the 52-inch rip capacity or would you go with the 36?
So the 56, the one that I have actually has the router table in the end. So
Okay.
I don't think I would go with a smaller one with that setup. I have a bit of a smaller shop, and I think that having that in there is nice. I don't typically use the table saw for what most people do. Like, I am not ripping 4x8 sheets of ply down with my table saw. I use it more for the data stack and smaller stuff, right? So I think you can very easily get by with a smaller version. and especially if you're going to have a separate router table. I that's just the way I do it. If I'm going to rip down 4x8 sheets of plywood, I'm getting my track saw and I'm getting the long 9-foot rail. And since I got that, it's so much more pleasurable, because as we all get older, you know, wrestling 4x8 sheets of plywood, and, you know, if God forbid you're trying to rip down MDF, I mean, those things are like astronomically heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I just, to me personally, I don't go near any long rips with, you know, a table saw. If I'm going to take rough lumber that is longer and I want to rip it down to something thinner, I'm more apt to go to a bandsaw than a table saw, because especially if it's rough, it's not going to be smooth. You got that risk of it binding and kickback and all sorts of other things, in my opinion. If I'm going to rip it, it's either going to be with you know, a bandsaw or a track saw. So those would be my two things for rough lumber for ripping. So,
What's your go-to track saw? You like the battery powered, or are you still a plug and play?
so I just recently in the fall picked up the battery powered, the TSC 55,
Okay.
and that has the 1.8 millimeter thin kerf blade, light years better than my 10-year-old, you know, TS 55 with the,
Okay.
what is it, the 2.2 or 2.4 millimeter blade. It just breezes right through everything. So it's the way my shop is set up. I really have a difficult time getting a 4x8 sheet of plywood into my basement shop. So I tend to rip everything out in my one-car garage or in my driveway. And it's just so much easier with that battery-powered track saw. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and I highly, highly recommend, if you have the means and you can afford it, find yourself one of those really long 9-foot tracks, and it's so much better. Because for years I was just taking 2 tracks and I was connecting them with the track connectors, and it was never quite 100% in my opinion. And
No.
it's just so much easier with that long track.
I've noticed that deflection that you're talking about, combining like a 6-footer and a 4-footer together.
Yeah, and it's just easier in my opinion to just
Oh,
have
yeah.
the longer track. You know
Yep.
it's good and it's not off at all.
If you have a place to store it, it's 100% worth it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is the next track. I keep saying I want to get the 55-inch track, but yeah, I want to get the big 9-foot track. Just
Yeah, it is ridiculously
Yeah.
priced for
Oh,
what
yeah.
it is. But
You-
if, like I said, if you have the means, it's
it's
going to
worth
help
it
you out so
100%.
much better.
Yeah, I would totally agree, because I'm still putting tracks together, and that's a pain in the rear doing that. Eventually I'll get just a very long one, because even though with the table saw, I agree with you, it's easier to put them on some sawhorses, a full sheet, and just cut your stuff down. And then you use the table saw to get to your exact cuts or whatever you need. You know what I mean? That's the best
absolutely.
way to go.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Even when I'm ripping down sheets of plywood for cabinets and stuff, I'll take the the parallel guides from Festool, and I'll just put them on the rail, and I'll just use that, and I've had no problems with getting everything to where I need it to be. Once you calibrate them, like everything, once everything's calibrated for the right measurements, it just works.
we were having a conversation Friday, and I never did realize this, that we were who were we talking to? Mustache. It was Kyle, and
Yep, Kyle.
I didn't realize that when you turn the track saw to a 45, because I really don't ever use it for that. I think I've used the Makita. I've never used the Festool for a 45 cut, but the Makita has those clips that'll lock it into the rail, right? And or to the track saw guide. Festool doesn't. And he was asking, he's like, I don't, he doesn't have a Festool. He was talking, I forgot what brand of track saw. I think he was talking about the Craig track saw. I was like, Makita has those locks, and then I went and grabbed one of my Festool, and it doesn't. But I showed him laying the Festool in there. If you've got those adjustments just right on the track, it's a tight enough fit. It doesn't allow the track saw to tip over on you.
Yeah.
But I wasn't aware because I've never used one, and I ran over there because I had to see, because I was like, I know the Makita has them, but the Festool doesn't. But that Makita, though, if you do not put those on, that saw will flip right off that track quick. I just thought it was an interesting point. We were having this conversation about that Friday.
The DeWalt, you just flip it over to the other side, mark it as the 45 side, and that way your rubber guides line up with the 45. The other side you put as a straight guide. Makes it super easy.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah. So you can,
because it's got the center guide. It's got a center guide. So you set it in the center and it lines up. You can line up on both sides.
So the DeWalt has a rubber strip on both sides of the track.
That's correct. But
Wow.
on both sides of it, and it's got the rail is centered. So that way it's equal on either side.
Either way. Oh, okay.
So I have one side set up as my 45 side, and I have the other side set up as a straight side.
I can't remember what saw Kyle was running.
Craig.
Oh, yes. Yes, you have the Craig one. That's right.
Yeah, I ran the Craig one for years and absolutely loved it. Just if you got to cut something that's more than 3/4 inches thick, it does not like it. It had an issue with the blade kicking, or not kicking out, but it would bend.
Yeah, deflection.
Good.
It would flex, you mean?
It would flex. Yeah, you could watch the blade deflect out as it was cutting.
Oh.
So that's why I got the big TS75.
Ooh.
Hey, believe me, you cut down about 20 sheets of plywood in a day, and you regret buying it really quick, because that saw is heavy.
Heavy, yeah.
I think it itself weighs more than the small one with the batteries on it.
And that's why I built the table in the center of my shop that houses my table saw, houses everything. So I can slap a 3/4 inch piece of MDF on it. It holds itself up, and then I can cut it. So, because you're right. You get older, and I'm also taller, so I don't like bending over to saw horses. I don't like my table saw sits at 42 inches.
Yeah.
So I'm pushing that,
Oh, I think you muted yourself.
And he's
Matt.
gone.
You muted your mic, Matt.
Oopsie. Technical difficulties.
Nope.
Still muted.
And yeah, we'll let him get that figured out. And
Yeah. So
back now. No, it's all at 42 inches, and it's I built the table in the center so that I can balance it at a 4x8 sheet on there, and I don't have to worry about it falling over or anything, because we get older and we don't want to.
Nope.
So when I'm ripping on my table saw, because I use my table saw a lot, but I also use those tracks as well, and it does come in handy. I usually use it for cross cutting more than I do for ripping.
Yeah. For a few years, I went without a table saw, and I was just using the track saw. And then I ended up getting that Festool sustainer saw when it came out, and that worked pretty well for about a year and a half for those other things that weren't really great with the track saw, for the smaller pieces and everything like that. And then a friend of ours, Joey, Eric over at Barber, Eric Barber, he was selling some equipment. I picked up his table saw from him, and that's when I got the that saw stop. So yeah.
I think it's always I think you got to have a table saw. You can't get completely away from one. I mean, some people do the stuff that they can't without one, but I really think if you're able to have one, it's a good thing to have in the shop. Makes some cuts a lot easier.
Repeatable cuts a lot easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
But though I will still always say a very well tuned bandsaw will do better than any table saw out there. There's so much more you can do with the bandsaw.
Yeah, I like a bandsaw for resawing, for cutting up my stuff that I cut up. But a table saw to me is just I don't know. That's my workhorse.
Yeah.
Anybody got any ideas on the Bosch track saw? JP has a question there, and
there's a
I have
question.
no idea about it. I have not tried it.
didn't even
or-
know
I
they
didn't
made a
even know
track
they
saw.
made that.
I don't know how he's
I-
gonna turn with a track saw, but you know,
Please make a reel on that, JP.
I want to see that.
what the
There'll
heck
be a
is a
long-
wood turner getting a track saw for?
He can prep stuff for his what's that saw called that everybody loves?
Oh, the door holder.
Yeah, for his door holder.
his door
There you
holder.
go.
He's trying to
Yeah.
replace his door holder.
Oh, he's got to cut. He's got to cut sheet goods for that door holder. That's
There
what
you
it
go.
is. Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot he did that as well.
Love you, JP.
What's that thing called? Oh, scroll saw. That's
Scroll
right.
saw. Yeah, there it
Door
is.
holder.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let Steve in on the inside joke. Come on, guys.
Well, I mean, that's what I call them. I think that's all they're good for is to hold your
It's a
door
jig
open
for the
in
lathe.
shop during the summer.
So Steve will ask this: have you ever used a scroll saw before?
I did. I
In
used
your
to use,
opinion.
yeah, I used to use one as a kid for hours just in the shop. Just
And now it holds open my doors, right?
Yeah.
That's what we use
Yeah.
it for.
I can't remember the last time I used one, but I think I was probably 12.
JP, I want to see you get the where you can hook your scroll saw up to your lathe. That's what I want to see. That would be just amazing.
I think the last time I used my scroll saw was to hold down, some stuff I was gluing together. It makes
There
a
you
great weight. Heavy as hell.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, it really,
Yeah.
truly does. It hold the heck out of a door.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Cast iron body.
I've never
yeah.
had them blow,
Yeah.
blow shut. You got them hold open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it has its uses in marquetry and everything else, but
No.
I just don't have one.
You're
No,
just
no.
too nice, Steve. You're just too nice of a guy.
Quite
Steve.
honestly, JP has done some amazing work with his scroll saw. He really has.
Oh, he
you know,
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really don't know JP, so I can't rag on him too bad.
No. No, you can. We give you the permission to.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can. We allow it.
We allow it. the guy's from across the pond, and he was one of the hosts of Creative Makers podcast before they got too busy and they had to do their own deal. But he's very talented wood turner and a scroll sawer. I mean, this guy has done some scroll saw pieces that are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Hey,
sit
that's not my
there.
scroll saw. There's a little scroll saw reindeer.
Oh, look
Oh,
at
there you
that.
go.
Look at that. But
I'm
yeah,
taking Jamie's side.
scroll sawers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a little club.
Well, I'll probably sell
Hey.
it once I get the CNC going. So,
Oh,
Who knows?
They're gonna happen.
or I'll just have a new
New door
a
stop.
new door stop.
There you go. It works good. It works really good.
It's a little expensive for a doorstop, I gotta say.
So, we'll go back to the hand planes. What do you recommend for sharpening as far as like stones? What would you recommend to get started with if you wanted to get into hand sharpening, and maybe the guide that you use?
Yeah, honestly, I think it comes down to budget. There's something for everyone. And, for years, you used to use king stones, relatively inexpensive. They're water stones. And, over the years, I've used the cheap guides that, you can get for like $15-20 off Amazon that hold the sides of a plane blade and pinch that blade together. They have the little one wheel in the center.
Yeah.
I've got the Veritas, what is the MK2?
Yes, sir.
And I've also got the Lee Nielsen guide, the sharpening guide. Both are great. As far as stones, I prefer the Shapton. I have the ceramic ones, but I know that in the Shapton line, the glass-backed ceramic ones are a little bit more affordable. And you don't need a ton of them. You need probably like 1,000, maybe 4,000, and maybe like 8 or 10,000. And that's a good start for any of them. Whatever you end up getting, some folks will use just the diamond stones, right? And literally just use those. They're a metal back and they've got the diamonds impregnated on them and they work great. Other folks will use things like sandpaper, and I've done that in the past. So there really is something for everyone. And I think really where I'm trying to go with this is just get out there and pick something and just use it and learn how to do it. Because it's really not rocket science. It's all it is taking two pieces of metal and bringing them together at a sharp point, and that's sharp, right? And for myself, I've standardized on the Shaptons. It's just because I've used them in the past and I like them. And the other thing that's important to know is if you're using like a water stone, water stones tend to be softer. Oil stones tend to be softer. Even the Shapton ceramic stones, they do need to be flattened. So you need some form of a lapping plate to be able to flatten those stones after every few uses because they will get worn out in the middle. And
Did not know
the
that.
other, yeah, and the other thing you want to do is you want to try and utilize the entire surface of your stone, or it's not as important with sandpaper or the diamond stones because those don't wear as easily. But with softer stones, water stones, oil stones, even the ceramic stones, you want to try and utilize the entire surface of that that stone so it wears evenly. You don't want to just be stuck right in the center all the time, because what ends up happening is you end up with a dish in that stone.
Now, is there a way to straighten that out? An easy way to just like the Tormek, they have a whatever that guide is that you put on there, and it trues it back up. What is it, a truing jig or something?
Yes.
So how would you do that with something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Shapton, they sell a flattening. They call it a lapping plate, and it's basically cast iron with diamonds impregnated on it, and you use some compounds that are very, very fine, and that will help lubricate and flatten it. And you just work the stone in kind of like a diagonal back and forth motion in like an X, and forward and back, and that will flatten it. They also make other like DMT is one that I have. They have a diamond based lapping plate that you can use as well. So there are various different lapping plate companies that you can get, and just make sure you flatten those stones. Because otherwise what will end up happening is as you wear the stone and you get a dish, you'll end up creating a camber on the blade. And you may not want camber on your plane blades or chisels or anything else that you're going to sharpen. There's a time to use a camber, and then there's time not to. Things like shoulder planes, you don't necessarily want any type of camber. You want that blade to be completely flat. Routing planes, same thing.
When would you want a camber?
Yeah, probably the most common spot where you want a camber is a heavy camber would be something like a scrub plane. If you're taking very rough lumber straight off the sawmill, it's all twisted and got crowns and everything, and flattening that. So a scrub plane is typically a narrow plane that has a very wide mouth and takes very aggressive cuts. And oftentimes those are cambered to help take almost like scallops out of the wood as it goes through. And, you take a lot of wood off very quickly, and then you follow that up with then your other planes to, your jack planes and your joiner planes and bore planes and those sorts of things to eventually get that down. So another, certain folks like the fact that to take the edges off of your more common like 4s, 5s, 6s, what they will sometimes do is, as they sharpen that plane blade, they'll at the very end they'll take and put a little bit of pressure on the left for like 3 or 4 strokes in that sharpening at the end, and then 3 or 4 strokes on the right side. And what that will do is that will just knock off the edges to help avoid plane tracks. It's very, very subtle, very, very light. Otherwise, what can end up happening is, as you plane, you'll end up almost seeing like rails, like look like railroad tracks. They call them plane tracks. There are other ways to kind of avoid those and get rid of those in your process of planing that board down. But that's a lot of times some folks will do that as well.
There you go. I think your brother is down there. Oh, there's a question. Go ahead.
So what is lapping fluid needed, or can you get away with water? I know that depends on the type of stone you're using.
Yeah, I would say it certainly depends on the type of stone. So for something like an oil stone, I would assume you would use some form of oil, just like you use with the sharpening. For the diamond stones, usually that's just water if you want to put anything on there. And the same goes for the shaptons that I use. It's just some water. And the difference between the stones are the shaptons that I have, you don't submerge in water and leave in water 24 hours a day. Typical like king stones, which are water stones, you would leave those in a water bath even when you're not using them because they need to stay hydrated. So hope that answers your question.
I was actually about to ask that question, if there's some that you need to leave in, because I know the ones that I bought, they say, just because it comes with a tub.
Yes.
And you just lock it in that when you're not using it. And I was like,
yep,
oh, okay.
Absolutely. Put a couple drops of bleach in there. Helps keep the bacteria at bay too.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Anytime you have standing water for any period of time, it gets funky quick.
And I thought, because I put it in a drawer in my toolbox. I was like, oh, it's sealed. It's in the dark. The chances of something growing are slim to none, but 105-degree shop at the time. Stuff grows.
What about algaecide?
Oh, that would probably work.
Just put a couple drops of algaecide in there. Would that work?
Probably.
That way you wouldn't have all that chlorine in there. You'd just something to kill the algae.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
I'm sure that would probably work.
I'd have been,
as long as it doesn't affect the stones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, an algaecide's safe on the skin.
Exactly.
I mean, heavily diluted.
Well, of course, you're only putting a couple drops in. But I mean, it's just, I thought about that because I've been thinking about it with the, I have a water-cooled spindle.
Yep.
And it'll get nasty. And so I've been putting algaecide in there. And I haven't had any issues with it since I've been doing that.
You run that on water, not like antifreeze?
No, I don't use antifreeze. I just use straight water, but I have like a 7-gallon reservoir on mine. And so I just put a couple drops of algaecide, and it has a lid when it's all not clear in any matter except for the pipe, the hose going into it's clear. But I just put that in there so that way it's not getting any light in it. But I put that in it, and I haven't had any issues since. I just didn't know. I've never heard anybody else doing it before, so I was just curious. Anybody had any ideas on it? Maybe I'm just a weird one.
Well, yeah.
They already know this.
How often do you have to change that water out, or do you not?
I've only had to change it once since I've had the spindle running, and the first time I had to change it within like a month and a half, and it was because I didn't have anything in it.
Okay.
And I heard of other people putting antifreeze in it. I've heard of, and I thought about antifreeze, and there's no chemicals to get rid of anything that's got algae in it, or something like that. So I just thought, when you do a pool, you just put some algaecide in it, and the sun's what kills it. So if there's no sun, just throw some algaecide in there. But
right.
It's not water.
I would say look at RV antifreeze, because that's what I put in my laser in the wintertime, and I believe RV antifreeze has an algaecide in it. 'Cause you got to figure you're keeping it in, storing tanks and stuff over the winter.
Right.
So yeah.
I think your brother wants you and him to start a hand plane school of Iderola hand plane school.
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's
There you
talk. Call me, man.
So, anything else that you, anything on the forefront that you're gonna get that you've been wanting to get into the shop, that you got your eyes set on?
Yeah, I'm curious about the new Festool Sys Air, their air purifier filter. They just launched that last week. I'm curious to see how much. Well, yeah, I'm curious to see how it will fit in the shop, especially now that I got the CNC that's going to start kicking up a lot of dust. Even though I'm planning on using some dust collection on it, I think it's still going to have a lot of fine air in the, fine dust in the air. I have a Powermatic, what is it, the PM 1250 or whatever that that fan is that's got the filter on the front of it. I forget the model number, but I've got that and that works great. But I'm curious about getting one with maybe a HEPA filter.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. So
on this.
Dust, go ahead.
Well, because you were talking about the CNC kicking up dust. Two questions, or one question, one other thing. What dust boot are you going to be using?
So right now, I found one off Maker World, I think, and I downloaded it, printed it, and basically built it myself. I got some, I don't know, I don't even know what it's called. It's like the brush material that's all on a straight line.
Yeah.
I just super glued that in the bottom of it. And it's made right now for the Makita router. And then I've just got a 2.5-inch hose going into the top of it. And I'm just going to use my dust extractor at the moment for that until I can get my Harvey G700 hooked up in the basement and plumb all the stuff with that. So that's what I'm planning for now. As soon as my spindle comes, I'm told that it's supposed to be coming with a dust boot from Onefinity, but they haven't finalized it in the design yet because it's got to be specially designed to work with the automatic tool changer.
Oh,
so there's looking at their forum, there's been a couple entries that I found. They're almost ready to go to production with it. Now, this was a few weeks ago, probably about a month ago that I last saw that. So it may already be in their final approval stage to go to production, and it's known to work with the ATC. And I believe I read in a comment on their forum that Onefinity said when it ships with it, or it will ship when your ATC and your spindle ship. So
nice.
I think it's coming. I don't know. We're gonna find out.
Yeah. But so the other note, because you're talking about CNCs putting off fine dust, the best advice I was ever getting when it comes to that, if it's putting out dust, your bit's running too fast.
I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah, you're seeing, and that's one thing, because like I know most of us use the Cadence manufacturing bits. I'm amazed how much slower you can run those RPM wise than some other bits, and still run the machine as hard as you can run it. And yeah, it just, once you get dialed in and it's just kicking chips, the fine dust everywhere, you won't have to worry about it.
Good to know.
Yeah. Yep.
Good to know. Yeah, I did hear it's very similar to like Forstner bits, right? It should be kicking up big chips, not fine dust.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. It means your bit's going to get hot, heat up too fast, and then lose its sharpness.
Unless you're doing some MDF, then you got no choice.
Oh yeah, then you're just that's when you turn on every HEPA filter, open the doors, turn on fans, and just pray.
Yeah. Dust collection is definitely something that is on the forefront because my shop is in the basement. It's not an outbuilding. It's not a garage. It's It's not something where I can just open a door and air
Yeah.
it out every week, right?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I didn't know you had a Harvey G700. I that's what I was going to ask you. I said, what do you do for dust collection? Are you just using extractors, or do you have something plumbed in? Or
right now I'm just using the extractors from Festool. I've had my G700 for almost a year now, and I have yet to get it in the basement because it's heavy. So
You got to
yeah.
find a bunch of friends that you don't like.
utilize. You didn't utilize, Sedge and Jason and Ronnie.
No, when they were here, I tried, but they weren't going to go for that one.
Really? They were just too interested in playing with your planes. That's what it was, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I gotta call some friends, or either that, or I gotta go call a moving company or something and get them in there. I got that, and I actually have a bandsaw. I've got a Laguna bandsaw. What was it, the 1412 BX that I got to get in the basement.
Nice.
And my basement is not the most ideal entryway. It does have a walkout, but it's a very low header as you come out of the basement. The whole house is a cinder block house, and I think when they built it back in the 50s, they decided they wanted to save some money, so they didn't put those extra 3 courses of cinder block to raise the house up. So my ceilings in my
low.
yeah, my basements are about 6'8".
Ooh.
My basement ceilings, and then
So-
All right.
yeah,
I won't complain about my 8-foot ceilings anymore.
yeah, and then of course you got the mechanicals and plumbing and everything.
So you're ducking.
So yeah, I'm not ducking, but I definitely know that when Jason came over, he ducked and didn't duck a couple times and hit his head. So
That's what he
And a
gets.
hard head.
That's what
Yeah.
he gets. So I'm gonna ask. So,
Yeah.
does the brother? Do y'all go toe for toe here? Like you buy something, he gets something. So, is he getting a CNC now? What's going on here?
So he's actually had a CNC for a long time that sat in the box. So he pulled a mat and procrastinated.
Oh,
And-
he pulled the Joey too. It's in a box.
It's still in the box. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's part of the.
That's
box
more
club.
Joey. That's more
Yeah.
Joey than me.
What's in the box?
Well, not really. I mean, kind of the same.
Yeah. He ended up getting I think it was an X carve a couple years ago, and it, life happens. We all have things that happen and stuff, but it was the thing that got kicked to the side for a little bit, and he did get it up and running back in the fall. So now he's up and running, and he's having a blast with it. But it's a
Nice.
smaller one. So I outdid him with my 4x4.
I like how you
Looks
threw
to
that
win.
in there. It is a smaller one. I like how you threw that in there.
Look, you can't even spell the words correctly on the week. You had to get it out there. He's typing it fast.
It's not in the box anymore.
Not in the box anymore.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
No, we don't really go toe for toe. We definitely compete a little bit on the woodworking side, I think, but he's kind of more fabrication, and he's got like tractors and welders and stuff. I took a welding class a couple years ago, and I'd love to get into it more, but yeah. So I think we do kind of go toe to toe a little bit when it comes to the woodworking stuff.
There you go. That's cool though
Now-
to have somebody, a sibling like that y'all can kick stuff back and forth, especially at the scale that you're at in it, heavily invested in it, let's say, even though it's hobby, but it's fun to have somebody that you could talk to about that stuff. Cause down here, we have nobody, there's except y'all guys online, there's down here where I'm at, I'm in,
Just say, what about us?
but I'm just,
You don't
We're
have a
people
local
too.
woodworking guild or anything that
nope. I
Start
talked
one
to
up,
the
man.
rabbits and the skunks and the possums and the cows across there's nothing out here, Steve. Come on.
Yeah,
riveting
you're in
conversation with
Texas.
some
I mean,
cows.
what are you like 3 hours away from civilization out there
Pretty
in
much.
Texas?
I'm surrounded by farm fields. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing around here. That's it. There ain't even any trees. I'm gonna get it out before Matt does. You see, because he's waiting. He's just sitting
And
there
I got nothing but
salivating.
trees. I'm over here
Yeah.
with nothing but trees, and I'm 3 hours away from my closest
You know,
field. So.
he'll sometimes take a picture and look what I got.
Trees.
I told him if I ever get up to Maker Camp, I'm gonna go hug a tree for a while because I've never seen them. I don't know what they look like. You know.
I mean, you're only what 6 hours from me. I've got trees.
Yeah.
Oh,
What do you have?
well,
Just
good for
sagebrush
you.
down there?
I've
He's
got.
got
Hey, I'm North
tumbleweeds and
Texas.
mesquite.
Yeah, he's got tumbleweed.
Mesquite.
He ain't got nothing. I've
Yeah.
got beautiful oak
Tumbleweeds.
trees and walnut trees. All
Out
kinds
there
of
in
stuff up here.
Tombstone, huh?
You know, good thing there's no bears down here or anything. There would be nothing to crawl up.
Wow.
Not that I'm just done.
Y'all checking this cat
Because
out?
it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Y'all checking that
Yeah.
chat out?
I actually used
Ooh.
tools.
Oh,
Shots
Yeah,
fired.
yeah.
Shots
Gauntlet
fired.
has been
Shots
dropped.
we
fired.
fired him up. We fired him
Yeah.
up. Here it comes.
Absolutely.
So I'll ask the $1 million question then,
Sure.
Steve. So he's obviously the one that uses the tools, but who's he call when he needs help with tech support or needs help with IT?
Me.
Exactly. Yeah.
All the time.
Okay. My printer's not working again.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like you have one a month, and you already used that up.
Yeah.
Send me a ticket. Send
Yeah.
a
Are you
ticket in on that.
Are you
Please-
sure it's plugged in? Yes.
Please send a ticket to help desk.
Yeah.
We might get back to you in 6 days.
Yeah, what's the ticket number?
Yeah.
Have you tried rebooting?
Yeah. Power on, power off.
Oh,
Is your computer plugged in?
Yeah.
hmm.
That was good.
Talking on Teams.
Yeah. Well,
No,
guys, I
we
guess.
have a good little rivalry.
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go.
So y'all want to wrap this up, guys, and
Let's
With a
wrap
bow.
this up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight. It's been great. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And anybody else got anything before I go into my little ending that y'all want
Let's,
to bring up?
No, it's
Nope.
been an awesome episode.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
great.
Let's have a great week. Let's do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, we're starting to get ready for our 100th episode in June. For June 8th, I believe is going to be that 100th
Mhm.
episode.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of great companies that are on board already for a giveaway. We're going to be doing a live giveaway, so you'll have to be present to win this. We're still waiting on some answers from some other companies, but we're going to try to make it a good episode. Maybe have some of these individuals on with us. We haven't really come up with everything that we're going to do yet, but we're still kind of kicking some stuff around. And please be sure to head on over to patreon.com/Creative Makers Podcast. If you would like to support us, we'd appreciate it. Thanks to our current Patreon members. We appreciate them very much. And thanks to everybody that takes time on Sunday to hang out with us and ask questions to the guys we have on here. Steve, make sure we got all of Steve's links down below in the description. Head on over there, go give him a follow. If you have any questions, he would not mind. I don't believe so. If you just give him a message on Instagram, and he will answer your questions, help you with photography, hand playing, you name it. The guy knows how to do it. I'm real happy that I was able to meet Steve. He's been a great friend, and I appreciate you coming on. We all do. And make sure you head on over to iTunes. I need 10 stars, 10.
10 of them.
We're leave us a review. We're still trying to figure out how to get into some of these platforms and figure out how to retrieve these. I know that Spotify is now allowing it. So next week on Creative Makers Podcast, we're going to have Stephanie and Dawn Marie from Unhinged Maker Society. If you want to learn about laser work, I mean, all these gals are real good at what they do. I hope y'all come out and join us and ask them questions. They're They do some awesome work. Anyhow, until next week, same time, same place, same beautiful faces, and we are out of here. Bye-bye.